The authorities quickly realized that destroying a prosperous town was completely indefensible, so they weaponized the law to rewrite history. Those inflammatory Tulsa Tribune archives, suddenly, mysteriously missing from libraries. Then, an all-white grand jury was convened, and, get this, they officially blamed the black victims for inciting the violence. And because it was legally declared a riot caused by the victims, insurance companies denied every single claim filed by black property owners. To top it all off, the city passed bogus fire codes requiring super expensive brick construction, which was just a blatant attempt to force survivors right off their prime real estate.
The cover-up didn't stop at property. It extended to the victims themselves. For decades, the official death toll was listed at an absurdly low 36 people, but the real estimate from survivors and modern historians is somewhere between 100 to 300 dead. Survivors testified about seeing trucks carting away bodies and dumping them into mass trenches. Yet authorities spent 80 long years explicitly denying that these mass graves even existed. They literally denied families the basic human right to bury and mourn their dead. It wasn't until the year 2020 that the first official excavations began, finally uncovering the remains that survivors had always known were there.
Act 4. Stolen generational wealth. Let's shift from the historical crime scene to the tangible, ongoing math of all this.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how visually it contrasts the drastically different economic trajectories created by the massacre. When we look back at the ashes of 1921, we are looking at a massive disruption of economics. Wealth doesn't just sit in a bank vault, it compounds over time. On the left side here, white Tulsa boomed from the 1920s oil industry, passing down property, trust funds, and capital to their kids and grandkids. But on the right, black Tulsa descendants had their compounded wealth violently interrupted. They were forced into tents, their insurance was completely denied, and their inheritances were quite literally burned to the ground. They had to start over from absolute zero.
To put a tangible number on that, economists have run the numbers. They conservatively estimate the compounding generational wealth lost by each individual family whose property was destroyed. Because they couldn't pass down those businesses or homes, the loss to each family tree today sits somewhere between $100,000 to $200,000. When you multiply that staggering number across an entire community of 10,000 people, well, you are looking at billions of dollars of wealth permanently erased from the black community.
Which brings us to the legal fight for restitution. In 2003, survivors and their descendants filed Alexander v. Oklahoma. This was a lawsuit seeking reparations for this heavily documented theft and destruction. The plaintiffs made a very clear argument. Because the government actively hid the evidence and terrorized survivors into silence for 80 years, there was no possible way they could have sued earlier. But the courts dismissed the case. Their legal reasoning: the statute of limitations had expired. The legal system effectively ruled that too much time had passed, protecting the theft by upholding a legal technicality.
And that leaves us with a profound, really unsettling question to end on. If a